costs. And I know you can't deal with it today, but I do think it needs to be dealt with. I had a letter in to me in the last few days where someone is waiting for a decision on taxation of costs for now over 3 years. 3-year waiting list. Not a 3-year waiting list, but a 3-year delay in getting cost tax. I think it's an issue we're dealing in this legislation with putting a new system in place to get rid of backlogs. Let's not create backlogs in other areas, and I think it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. And I will talk to you maybe after this debate on the matter again. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator Burke. Now calls Senator Van Turnhout. Senator, you have 4 minutes. 5 minutes.
I think, yes, but don't worry, I don't think I'll lead it all. You're very welcome, Minister, as always, to the House. Unlike the arrangements in other common law jurisdictions, the Irish Supreme Court is the court of final appeal in all appeals from the lower courts. And according to recent figures published by the Court Service and reported in the Irish Times, the Supreme Court received 605 appeals last year, which is a 21% increase on 2011. It issued 114 judgments, up 56% from 2011, which is quite extensive, because if you look at the US Supreme Court, they have 64 judgments last year, and the UK Supreme Court had 85 judgments. And we know that there's a current backlog of 4 years at the Supreme Court. I think the establishment of Court of Appeal would represent a major reform and streamlining of the court system, which will bring Ireland more in line with the Article 6 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which is to be very much welcomed. While retaining the right of appeal from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court in line with the well-defined constitutional standards, I believe it will help reduce the backlog of cases by removing the Supreme Court's remit cases that are not appeals on constitutional issues or cases of major importance. And this, I think, will make the Supreme Court more of a constitutional court in the true sense. I welcome the abolition of the one judgment rule in cases involving the constitutionality of laws. I think this will allow the Supreme Court to issue more than one judgment and will be beneficial to the development of jurisprudence and public interest law. And I agree with Minister Shatter that an efficient and effective court system will help make Ireland more attractive to investors and multinational companies. But one note of concern I do have, Minister, and Senator Quinn has touched on it, pertains to Section 7, which deals with the interface between this bill and the 32nd Amendment to the Constitution, abolition of the Seanad Bill 2013. And this is not so much a concern about this bill before us, which I do fully support and welcome, but it's more the ill feeling that it raises in me about how uncertain and complex the ramifications of the possible abolition of the Seanad are. This is just one example of many instances of, if the Seanad is retained, then this, and if the Seanad is abolished, then that. Like, if we look at Section 7, it obviously references the vote on the 32nd Amendment, and if the people were to vote yes to abolish the Seanad, and I do stress that it's a big if, that's not the same as Abolition Day, which this bill also mentions. And so my question would be, Minister, is the Court of Appeal Implementation Day therefore expected at the next term of government and is not anticipated to be within this term of government? Or are we going to have many bills with all these choices? Because they are not the same thing about the people voting on a day and the abolition. As I made very clear during yesterday's debate, I think the question of Seanad abolition is one for the people and the people alone to answer. But I do remain concerned about the lack of clarity and uncertainty about what our constitution is going to look like without the Seanad and how those gaps that are going to be left are going to be filled.
Thank you, Senator Van Turnhout. And I call Senator Trevor O'Clougherty.
Good morning, Harley. Kate Foxruth. I guess Ken Afninti Muziguni, of course, the Policy of the Kamayat Walker 2